Nod-Krai Special Program has 4 big lore drops that you need to know about. First, Kuuvahki is the original power of the dragons and moon sisters that can kill Celestia. Second, Columbina is the stalled 4th moon that needs help from the 4 shades. Third, the Wild Hunt is the twisted copy of the dead moon sisters and Seelies in Nod-Krai. And finally, the origins of moon wheels that actually come from an old Snezhnayan kingdom that killed frost giants and the frost moons in a place that the dragons called Niflheim. The very entrances were the first blasphemies of humans, and the abyss erupted thousands of years ago, along with an extra theory on Sandrone, Dottore, and the Wanderer's battle to the death. But also another paradox created by the Shades to again mess up the siblings and their long-awaited reunion. Hey guys, what's up? Aru, and this is everything we know about Nod-Krai in one single video. I'm pretty sure that you guys already know how these videos work, so as usual, timestamps will be down below, and without further ado, let's get started. Starting off, Nod-Krai is found in the northern middle section of Teyvat, and even farther north is Snezhnaya, or what the dragons would like to call Niflheim. The locals call Nod-Krai an Elysium because people from everywhere come here to chase fortune, but in practice it's actually a rough paradise. Big opportunities, plenty of tricks and scams with constant pickpockets and robberies. Nod-Krai is also known as the Moonlit Enveloped Land, the melting pot between 11 factions, with a 12th divine faction being the Shades that might intervene. Outside the only locally based authority the Voynich guilds reach, rules are pretty loose and power tripping is very common. As Sandrone puts it in the trailer, Nod-Krai lacks a ruler, and the Fatui are simply establishing a new order. The land itself has some strange origins. Nod-Krai is said to be the remnant of a 4th moon that never fully formed, theorized to be Columbina. That's why the terrain feels otherworldly and why the region is so exposed to abyssal incursions and is littered with moon fragments from the sky. The whole place was once a wasteland after repeated clashes with the Abyss, so we'll know even more about the origins of Teyvat's old world moon era and how the Abyss first entered from the coming artifact sets. But even so, people still rebuilt the land, and some here can wield moon-born power older than the 7 elements themselves. Long before the 7 divine thrones and even before the primordial one and Enkanomiya came to Teyvat, there were the dragon sovereigns, elemental dragon lords of the old world. Their dragon king Nibilang, an ancient dragon tied to the creation of the world and to the dragon lineage that once ruled the elements. As part of that sky order, Nibilang created the 3 moon sisters, Arya, Kanan, and Sonnet, who then took turns lighting this moonlit world. But they were also known as the Eternal, the Iridescent, and the Frost Moons. Based on books like the Bamboo-Lit Forest, the Moon Sister's lover, being the sun, seems to also be Nibilang, because his scales shine bright like the sun itself. Now, somewhere between humanity's invasion and the descending of the Abyss, a 4th moon was supposed to be created right before the betrayal of the Moon Sisters. This is where Columbina comes in, the prophesied moon goddess that can't return just yet. So our mission now is to find her moon, or at least memories of her being the moon goddess. Fallen fragments of the dead moons like the ones in Hisi Island became a refuge for exiles of the ancient civilization of Hyperborea, now known as the Frost Moon Scions. The land was said to have withstood the Wild Hunt, which is the Abyss, and even a certain mad monk's rambling, which could have actually been the Voyager who spoke of blasphemies and questioning the rule of gods. Now that a new moon is rising, the fall of another moon sister might actually happen, just like the prophecy. In that light, local lore about Nod-Krai being a stranded moon fragment of a 4th moon actually helps explains why the region is a hot pot for all the factions, why it feels outside of normal rules, and why many of its people can tap moon-born powers called Kuuvahki. The source of all conflict and power in this region is Kuuvahki, known in Chinese as the Force of the Moon, that originates from the Light Realm or Vishap Realm, which is actually similar to the Light of the Dragons but for moons. It's an ancient primordial light that existed before it was split into 7 elements. Today, this draconic moon power is only found in Nod-Krai and shapes the land itself, giving local plants, animals, and monsters unique ecologies and moon-born attacks, as well as keeping their original forms from thousands of years ago. If you played Natlan's World Quest with the little guy, then you'll also know that it's similar to, or is the purest form of phlogiston, the essence of everything in Teyvat, used by Nibilang and the Dragon Sovereigns before Teyvat was invaded and changed by the primordial one, Phanes. Basically, everything you see in Teyvat is supposedly created with the code of Kuuvahki, which is now stolen, altered, and used by the usurper, Phanes, for creating their own forms of life. In Nod-Krai, people don't tap this Kuuvahki power with visions, but with moon wheels. Divine playthings or toys powered by Teyvat's 3 moons that channel Kuuvahki energy. Now, moon wheels were said to be ritual items used in the old world in a place called Niflheim, which we commonly know as the Kingdom of Giants. Now, this single place points to Hyperborea and its blasphemy of creating the Snowland Fae out of frost giant bones and fallen frost moonlight. So it's safe to say that the betrayal of the moons long ago is connected to the Frost Moon Scions and Snezhnaya's Fatui order today. One of these giants could have also been the ones in the special program, and their fur could be similar to the one that Yelan wears, which was supposed to be a gift for the Tsaritsa. Now, one prominent use of Kuuvahki is ammunition, like Aino's moon-powered cannon in Nasha Town, and you'll see many Kuuvahki tech everywhere too. From signboards and shop fixtures to street machines to trinkets sold by scummy merchants and even weapons used by Nod-Krai soldiers. Now, as the traveler will learn to wield this Kuuvahki often with the help of these Seelie-like moon spirits. Now, has anyone noticed within the special program that Columbina is actually part of the Archon banquet? Yeah, Columbina is technically an Archon due to her control of Nod-Krai, which means she likely controls who gets moon wheels as well, and is also why her power is fragmented. Columbina can't completely return to her moon because of two main points. One is a very likely fragmented past that the Scions need to complete for Columbina to realize her true goal. Similar to Nahida and Rukkhadevata and the Irminsul, where we need to unlock some key memories or words so Nahida can properly do her duties. And the same applies to Columbina as the moon goddess. To return her true purpose, we need to restore her memories and Archon-like moon power. And the other point is pretty straightforward. The Fatui are actually obstructing her ascent in favor of replacing her with a mechanically caged and controlled moon. This would make even more sense when you realize that Nod-Krai's allegiance is actually half, one for the Tsaritsa and the other for the moon goddess. So power and authority is technically split within Nod-Krai, hindering the moon's ascent even more. Add to that, Nod-Krai is supposed to be part of Snezhnaya, but is also an independent city-state. There's also my other theory for the Tsaritsa being a moon sister, which conflicts with Columbina's current case, and is also very likely to be true. This explains why she isn't being rescued by the Fatui, rather they're trying to retrieve her like some object for the Tsaritsa's plan. The Fatui's plan is also actively hindering the Scions' rights to restore Columbina to her former moon goddess glory. However, the Fatui aren't only trying to control territories with moon fragments and moon statues, but they've also stolen the Scions' divine moon relics for seeing the true past of the moon's history. But with all that said, they're actually also helping Columbina with one single problem, which we call the Veil of Lies or the fake sky, for which the new moon needs to be free from if she is to rise. In the original Old World era, there was no fake sky, and the moons could freely roam the stars and watch over their world with their moonlight. A moonlit world protected by the moon's light. But now a veil of sin is covering the truth that keeps the moon from ascending as a true moon. And the worst of it is that there are 9 other factions that want a piece of Columbina's and the Kuuvahki's power. But how exactly is a war between multiple factions going to work out, especially in a positive light? Well, the answer is a divine intervention from the 4 divine envoys that control the world's laws, which we'll talk about later. But for now, let's talk about all the locations and points of interest within Nod-Krai. Now, we know that Kuuvahki and the moon fragments are a strategic prize, but it's also an essential source of livelihood for everyone. In Paha Isle, the Fatui's base is created right on top of these moon fragments which exude Kuuvahki moon energy. The Kuuvahki Experimental Design Bureau, likely headed by Sandrone and Dottore, weaponizes this power under the Pale Star Edict, and even nearby moon goddess idols are caged in steel, which further increase their odds at killing the gods using Columbina's power. Opposite of this is the southernmost port town of Nasha, rebuilt by merchants on top of an abyss-scorched ruin. It's currently the largest public hub and where the name Elysium comes from. It's where the Voynich Guild HQ is, where the main Krumkake craft shop can be found, and where Aino's cannon is also located, where we use it to fight against the Wild Hunt and the Fatui. Now, a character named Speranza also lives here as a sort of syndicate, which might refer to Nefer from the Voynich Guild. Slightly west of Nasha Town is Lempo Isle, which is basically a junkyard, functioning as an outpost for the Krumkake craft shop, and is where Aino makes her quirky contraptions before selling it in Nasha Town. And to the east is the Blue Ember Lake, hiding a deep grove of underground forests and waters beneath a calm surface. Its megaflora and hulking aquatic craft hinting at a buried civilization, and it could be connected to Fontaine's other old civilization, Remuria. Next, to the far west, Hisi Isle is the Frost Moon Scions' spiritual core, where shrines, glowing flora, relics, and Frost Moon elks are found with unmechanized moon statues of Columbina. The Scions who spread moon deity statues across Nod-Krai have avoided open conflict with any of the factions for 5 centuries. But recently, Fatui activity started stealing sacred relics from the Scions, igniting the Scions versus Fatui conflict. Now, these stolen relics can be used to see the true past, not only the past of Hyperborea, Snezhnaya, and Nod-Krai, but also of the Moon Sisters themselves. Moving on to unique Abyss phenomenons, Nod-Krai's threat profile centers on the Wild Hunt, a Bloodborne-like manifestation of the Abyss. Because of how the Abyss consumes Tevat's information and regurgitates mimic abominations, then this giant hand might be the hands of the fallen Seelies, or worse, the Moon Sisters themselves when they died long ago. And once the Abyss infected Nod-Krai, it made twisted copies of the dead along with the Moon Sisters. The Wild Hunt is also said to warp the natural rules of Tevat, which is very similar to the Kuuvahki, so even that doesn't exactly work correctly here, which would explain these guys. So the Wild Hunt is basically this region's abyssal calamity cranked up to 11 by consuming Kuuvahki, specifically altered for hunting the moon. You'll also notice that there are no hilichurls seen in the entirety of the special program because they're all consumed and replaced by these headless abominations. Now, I've already gone over all the characters from my previous video, so I'll focus on the 3 main characters featured in this patch for now. Flynn's is actually one of 2 Lightkeepers that we can see fighting against the Wild Hunt, so hopefully they're not a dying faction just yet. Lightkeepers fight using ancient lanterns, whose power lets them lure abyssal monsters in and then purge them with fire. Flynn's fighting style likely is inherited from his lineage, with his father remembered as Chudomir, the Foolish Will-O-Wisp, which is based on Celtic spirits that lure people with fire. But Flynn's lineage lures monsters instead of humans before sending them back to the grave. Moving on, Nefer, a feline-featured storyteller and the head of the Voynich Guild's Curatorium of Secrets, Nefer is Nashatown's greatest information broker, part activist and part Sumeru historian-looking cat lady. But based on that alone, her connections can stretch from being Varka's contact in Nod-Krai as well as the person who sent Alice this letter. So she knows about the Hexen Circle too. And she also knows about Nicole being a Seelie, which I explained in my previous video was the first Seelie ever. Based on the Behemoth event question 5.3, she could also be hiding under the alias Speranza. So she's going to be the one to welcome us to Nod-Krai along with Aino, Durin, and Yahoda, and Inefa. Now, you might have noticed that I left out Sandrone and the Hat Guy and the 4 Shades out of the lore segment. Well, that's because everything we know about them is still largely theory. Now, I've already mentioned this from my Welkin Moon video a while back, but I might as well mention it again with even more detail. At this point in the special program, Hoyo already confirmed that Sandrone isn't the true mastermind, but she is the puppet, a Fontanian-style mecha body modeled after the late Mary Ann Guillotin, built by her genius brother, Elaine Guillotin. Now, this sad sibling backstory has 3 sad layers originating from Fontaine. Elaine as the hidden controller, possibly residing or is remotely piloting this big guy as his vessel/enforcer, and the Harbinger Sandrone puppet that looks way too similar to Mary Ann Guillotin. The visual cues that push this are her wind-up mechanism and Catherine, who looks very much like Mary Ann as well. Now, this gets even more messed up if we look at Sandrone's origins from the Commedia dell'arte, because there's actually something called the Sandrone Society, and the way Hoyo decides to depict this with Elaine Guillotin is way more messed up than we thought. Because not only is Sandrone's identity split into 3 family members through the owner, the mech, and the puppet Sandrone, which honestly fit their descriptions by the way, but he actually went beyond that with multiple other puppets that you can find scattered all over Tevat, giving you primogems for the dailies that you do. And Hoyo basically drives the nail into the coffin by having the Sandrone puppet herself greet us instead of Catherine. This guy right here was so devastated by the death of his siblings that he created an assembly line of the exact same puppets over and over, and is by the way still studying bionic and puppet creation to the point that he would partner with the number 2 Harbinger, Dottore. Yes, it's canon lore that Sandrone and Dottore are partners in crime, creating multiple robotic experiments together. So you can only imagine the amount or the scale of the puppets that Sandrone, or rather Elaine Guillotin, is creating, and the amount of copies of Mary Ann Guillotin that he's putting out. Now, as for how we're going to beat these 2 Harbingers, well, we already have a returning ally that hates everything around him. the Wanderer. But this also gives us enough reason to believe that the Wanderer is here specifically to go and either kill or confront Dottore, of which I'm pretty sure he's going to do the former. There's no other reason for the Wanderer to be here apart from Dottore. Now I'm gonna hope that Dottore isn't going to die in this game because, well, why waste a wonderfully designed but unredeemable character, right? I mean, we already have 3 Harbingers who commit war crimes daily, so why not have another one? I'm not counting Columbina here, by the way, because she isn't trying to be a Harbinger right now, but I'll leave this interesting piece of information to you guys' hands. Finally, the 4 Shades are my theorized 12th faction that's going to intervene in the war in Nod-Krai. And we also know that 2 of the most annoying Shades have already messed up the Travelers' lives 500 years apart from each other in this same timeline. Time block theory. And now they're here to not only displace the spaceships of the siblings, which we can see from the trailer, but also intervene in the war for the moon. In the God's Limits teaser, Renova herself decides that the Shades had to intervene, but the topic was between intervening with the Traveler and the theorized Asmodee being Paimon so glued to the Traveler, or intervening with the Tsaritsa's plan to kill a god, of which the Shades have been keeping an eye on for probably 500 years at this point. Now, the Shades themselves aren't inherently evil, by the way. They just do things based on their rule to a fault. Time is time, life is life, death is death, and space is space. That's the rule. They can't really do anything about it. So intervening with the Travelers and the current Nod-Krai Battle Royale is going to be another twist that allows both the ascent of the 4th moon and the unveiling of the fake sky without breaking the rules again. Another paradox, if you will. Whether they're going to do this to help us or not is still going to depend on their loyalty to the heavenly principles. And it seems like 3 out of the 4 Shades are already faltering. And there we go, everything we know about Nod-Krai, along with some theories on Columbina and the Shades, as well as our main antagonist, Sandrone. Comment below if you guys think that the real Sandrone is the puppets we made along the way, or if Columbina and Dottore won't become playable characters. Now that's enough rambling for now. I've said enough and my head hurts because I haven't slept yet. So I'll see you guys in the next video, yeah? As usual, like and comment if you enjoyed, subscribe and hit the bell for more of my ramblings, and stay mad, theorists. Bye!